And on October 13th through 21st, we will hold a week of events that we're calling Maine Peace Walk. This is a artwork done by a dear friend of ours, Russell Ray from Hancock, Maine. For the last 6 years, we've organized a peace walk in October through the state, starting in a different place, going to a different part of the community, always passing through communities that have military production sites, always bringing this issue of conversion and climate and peace to our citizens of a state. This year, we've decided to hold the entire week's peace walk in our community of Bath, calling for the conversion of the shipyard to help us deal with the reality of climate change. We've invited activists to come and help us again flyer all the doors across the city, hold twice-a-day vigils, morning and afternoon, at Bath Iron Works as workers come and go. We'll organize film showings in the community, potluck suppers, and public discussions, and even more. Recently, we've been holding civil disobedience actions at christenings. We've done the last two where we've had a total of 21 people arrested. At the time when they marched the new Navy crew in to appear at the christening ceremony, we've stand and blocked the road or the gate there at Bath Iron Works. We've already begun to put out a call for the next christening. We don't know the date of it yet. It'll be sometime within the next 6 months. And we're now sending out a list repeatedly to people in Maine of those who are saying, join us, we plan to do civil disobedience at this next christening. We've got 31 people already on the list. We invite all of you to come and join us sometime soon in Bath. It's a beautiful place to come visit. Come join us and get arrested with us in Bath and help us bring this message of conversion to the people in our community. Along the way, fellow activist in Maine, Lisa Savage, a school teacher up in Solon, Maine, a very rural, conservative part of the state, she's created a new group called the Maine Natural Guard. The vision is not only to convert the military production system, but also to convert the Pentagon itself into a new and much-needed role as a humanitarian and disaster relief agency to help those in places like Puerto Rico who are now suffering from the ravages of Hurricane Irma. Just last weekend, 4 of us wearing these Maine Natural Guard t-shirts went to the Sierra Club's statewide conference on climate change in Lewiston, Maine, and we split up and attended as many of the workshops as we could, flyering people about this Maine Peace Walk, showing the connection between the military, which has the largest carbon boot print on the planet, and climate change. And we got a decent response, and we were very happy about that. During the time of slavery, when we had another dominant, evil economic system in this country that people thought could never be changed, abolitionist Frederick Douglass said, "Power concedes nothing without a demand. It never did, and it never will." So I ask you, dear friends, what is our demand today? Let it be the conversion of the military-industrial complex. A win, win, win for the peace movement, the labor movement, the environmental movement, and the social justice movement. Thank you all very much for listening.
So we can take a few questions. If you'll go up to the mic if you would like to say something.
Should I start? I'm a little uncomfortable with this concept of national security being applied to climate security. How about human security, international security? I know the intention. I applaud what you're doing and the great resources that you supply and so forth. I have no problem with that. But the concept of energy independence is maybe a little bit, let's say, resonant with the Pentagon's, say, worldview, which is servicing the military-industrial complex, the Oil Protection Service, as I mentioned earlier today. So the point is that I think as climate and energy justice and social justice activists, we should think not only nationally, but internationally, transnationally, and we need to build a transnational movement because that's the only movement with the power to contest global capital on the world today. I appreciate that national, local movements are essential, but we should, I think, have that perspective. And I just want to make one other quick point. It was brought out earlier today that natural gas has a big carbon footprint, indeed, because of the methane leakage to the atmosphere. Matter of fact, it's equal, fracked natural gas is equal, is actually greater than coal, and conventional is equal to coal. And actually the bridge energy source to 100% renewable is actually conventional oil that actually has 3/4 the carbon footprint of coal. And we need to use the minimum amount to replace itself. And that's going to require a global, a transnational movement. So just to share that, it's a matter of perspective, not only national, but international. We need to build a global revolutionary subject, put it that way.
I think those are great points. It's not national security we need, it's worldwide security. And that's very much what's at stake, both because of climate change and because of the militarism of the United States. And, you know, and yes, energy independence for the United States is not the goal. Renewable energy, clean energy, that's the goal. That said, there are communities, and I don't know if people in this room maybe come from some of these communities where, you know, you say climate change, you say clean energy, the door is shut in your face. And in some of those places, you actually can shift toward clean energy by using the words energy independence. So as long as you know, as you're smart about it and you know that that's what you're doing, and you know that you're not saying energy independence hoping to shift from oil to fracked natural gas, but that you are only interested in doing that if the shift is going to be to something cleaner, then I think there might be sometimes a tactical reason to use that phrase.
Let's have a question from over here.
Yes, just quickly picking up on Lindsay's mention of the people's budget. We've talked a lot about the need for our various movements to deepen our collaboration at this conference. And I'd just like to offer, kind of along the lines I think Lindsay was saying, that a tool that will help us do that is if we all would work together, just as a piece of our work, in adopting the people's budget. The Congressional Progressive Caucus is an incredibly diverse body in the United States Congress. It's a group that is willing to listen to us from all the different movements each year when they create this budget. This is a real thing. It's been economically vetted. It much better than any other budget reflects the priorities that we've been talking about in this conference. And it really could be a very powerful tool because it does give us that positive demand, that positive something that we can really stand behind and say, this is what we stand for. So I'd urge everyone to look at it. It covers every area that we've covered in this conference and many more, social justice, poverty, you name it. These are figures that are put in the budget of what we could do with that budget, and it's the best alternative available. So I just ask people to consider that, and appreciate Lindsay bringing that up.
Anything?
Yeah, I mean, I think it is the best budget out there, and it's put together by the Congressional Progressive Caucus together with the Economic Policy Institute, and every year when they put it together, they have a period where they accept comment, and every year we make a comment, cut the military spending more, cut it again, cut it again. And, you know, I think there's still definitely some improvement that they could make on that, but they are listening, and that's unique. And you know, I think one thing that all of us are probably very accustomed to struggling with is not being taken seriously. You know, you say what you think the world should look like, and you get back, oh, that'll never happen. But you know, this is an important test case for saying, no, this is serious. There are members of Congress who are taking this seriously. And the more of them we get, the more our vision of the world starts to look like something that could really happen.
Over here.
Hello, I'm Rick Shattuck, and I'm proud to be a member of Veterans for Peace, so thanks for your good work. I was in the Marines for 2 years, and involved with other peace-oriented causes. And one which you may be familiar with in New Hampshire is Keene, New Hampshire is a town where a lot of people use digital currency, such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Litecoin. And this is a great force for world peace. The way that the big military is funded is through the Federal Reserve System, which can create money at will, billions of dollars for military bases worldwide, big aircraft carriers, things that the U.S. public would not necessarily vote for. But one thing that everybody could do is look into digital currency that's in the news a lot, Bitcoin. I bought some in 2011 for $1.03, and now it's worth over $3,000. So there's good reasons, in addition to peace motivation, to get into digital currency. It can't be controlled by any government. Even the Chinese just recently, last week, was trying to do something to curtail its use in China. Bitcoin took a little blip and it's back up. So this takes the ability to finance war indefinitely, pulls the rug out from under the Federal Reserve System, and I just encourage everybody to look into it, maybe buy $10, $100 of, I don't want to give investment advice, but there are a lot of digital currencies that are quietly revolutionizing society. So I was wondering if you have something to say. Have you been to Keene, New Hampshire?
Well, I know someone who's associated with Bitcoin. He's also associated with the Cato Institute, so that association comes to mind. I think it's an interesting. We need every way at this that we can get, and so it's worth a look.
I thought this had to do with financial trade-offs and conversion, so we can trade off use of the U.S. war dollar, the petrodollar, and convert to alternative, peaceful digital currencies. Thanks.
I just want to say I appreciate the work that both of you have been reporting on. I had a big but, though. It seems to me that the military spending isn't so much either or, and the big but was, doesn't the military do a lot of research and development? A lot of it that we may not want, but the whole space and the internet is based on the original research of the military, is it not?
I'll take that, yeah. Oh, yeah, they do a lot of research and development, but it's not much on anything that we can really use. Yeah, okay, Velcro is nice. What was that orange drink that we had? Tang, yeah, I mean, there are aluminum foil, I guess we could say. Yeah, internet, okay. Yeah. But let's just think about it seriously, though. If you took the same amount of money that was spent over the life of this military-industrial complex since just World War II, and you invested that into, let's say, putting a solar device on every house and business in America. Imagine the jobs that would have been created. Imagine the lessening of our carbon boot print on this planet. And, you know, so you can go down the line. There are all kinds of scientists and engineers now at universities across America that are not doing good research because their schools have run out of money and they have to rely on the Pentagon for investment. A friend of mine lives in Albuquerque, and he tells the story that there's now at the University of New Mexico a secret part of the university that people are not allowed to go into because their sole purpose is to do research and development for the military-industrial complex. So this means that something else is not being funded, something else that is needed and worthwhile and could help us on this planet. So clearly, I don't think that we're going to have any great loss if we convert the military-industrial complex. And we don't really have a lot of time. Let's be very frank about it. We don't have much time at all to really do this kind of thing. And even if tomorrow we converted everything and solarized America, we would still be at the tipping point where we face massive, massive climate change implications. But now it's just a question of the degree of the severity. So we don't have time to mess around.
I would just add that, you know, we have a federal budget for science as well, and that the military budget is roughly 20 times our science budget, and we could choose to invest less in the military and more directly in research that's actually intended to benefit us. And, you know, I think that sort of things, my husband is a research scientist, and you know, there are lots of people out there who want to research and who, you know, curiosity is not driven by military spending. And so I think we definitely could have ended up with an internet without it being funded by the military.
Bruce has been using the word military-industrial complex a lot, and it reminded me of a young friend who visited Washington not too long ago, and she went down to the White House doing the tourism thing. And she went over to the guards at the White House, 20-something guy, and she says to him, you know, I'm, as a joke, she says, I'm looking for the military-industrial complex. Can you tell me where it is? And he looked at her and he said, I've heard of that. I think it's somewhere over there. So okay, short question, please. Short question, please.
Yeah, I heard a lot of the short question and brief comments, or no comment, just question mark, a lot. But there is a thing that we have to examine. We talk about a financial and budget. We have to see the process. The budget usually is by those appointee or elected officials, which are elected by the voters, but not by the non-voters. So we have to examine this, why the voter vote for those people who cannot serve the people. And the problem is a lot of those are by the lobbyist group, the financial institution, think tank, and even non-profit civic organizations. So we have to examine those. The problem, those are usually backed up by those parties who are not really for the public interest. But just like non-profit organizations who are with the other organizations who are really penetrated by those. And then they support the candidates without really public debate, rigorous debate. So that is one of the problems. Second is those elected officials who are, again, with a lobby interest group influence. So let's say support the PPP, this public-private partnership, which are the most, basically is the most serious fraudulent network, just like Rockwell Town Center. And then for three branches, they don't allow people to speak with all the improper processing of complaint and procedure and proceeding and record, changed everything, including from people's physical security, something like that will not allow people to speak. That's a problem. We cannot solve the social problem. So my question, you see, that's the problem. Today I saw this best platform that we have, and I appreciate my panelists with all those effort and interest put in your time and effort. But we have a lot of problem here. You see that? So I just wonder if we can really pick up those problems who don't allow people to speak and really examine the problem.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Can we have a question?
First of all, I love the research that you all do at the National Priorities Project, and thanks for bringing Seymour Melman into the room, because I think he certainly inspired me a million years ago. My question to you particularly, Bruce, is how do we get the money allocated? I live in Northampton most of the time, where we have L3 Keo, which is one of the biggest military industrial complex money makers. How do we do the conversion? Do we go through Congress? Do we call windmills weapons? And so they get funded? Do we call solar collectors weapons? Or which side? How do we do that? And where are you seeing any success?
Well, I think that's the fundamental question. With all due respect to any persons here in the audience and any organizations that spend a lot of time slogging around the halls of Congress trying to change politicians' minds, I personally gave up on that political strategy a long time ago, largely because I was on an airplane one time flying from Orlando to Seattle, and I was sitting next to a right-wing Florida state representative who was one of the chairs of the Transportation Committee in Florida. It was all about road building, right? Developers, road building. That was his agenda. And I watched him with a stack of newspapers this high on that flight, all papers from his district. And he went through every square inch of those papers. And I realized that any good politician is going to know what's going on in their district, right? They're going to follow it. In fact, after we had this campaign in Bath to get the city to cut in half General Dynamics' request of $6 million, we got a phone call from Senator Angus King, independent, U.S. Senator from Maine, who wanted to meet our committee. Why? Who the hell are these people in Bath that got their city to go up against me? I want to know who they are. Okay? And so if you want to reach the politicians, you don't have to go to Washington and get it down on your knees and beg them. All you have to do is organize in your local community and make some waves, make some sparks of electricity happen, and those politicians are going to know about it, and they're likely going to come to you, okay, to find out what the hell's going on. Who the hell are you? And so I think that's the answer. We're not going anywhere anytime soon when it comes to Washington. We have a Republican president, a Republican Congress. We're not going to get any legislation passed in Congress to cut the military budget. Our only hope is to educate the public and activate the public. And my hope, as we're doing our upcoming Peace Walk in Maine, or in Bath, is that people fresh on their mind, they're going to be watching these stories about the people in Puerto Rico slogging around in waist-deep water, all right, after the levee or the dam broke, okay? And people are starting to see that this shit is real, and it might impact us in some way. And so one thing we talked about at the Sierra Club conference last weekend was, how is climate change impacting Maine today? Well, the lobster are moving north because the Gulf of Maine is heating up, and the lobstermen are saying, oh my God, we're losing our lobster. The clams are dying off, okay? The ticks are worse than ever. We have all new kind of diseases in the trees, and logging is a big industry in Maine. And so the trees are dying because of climate change. And so people, in people's own lives, they're beginning to see the reality of this, and we've got to go to them and talk to them about these things and then make the connection from there. And so I think it's the hardest work. People are always saying to me, Bruce, what's the magic bullet? What if we took out a full-page ad in the New York Times? What do you think, you know? I'm sorry, that's not going to do it. We've got to do the hardest work of all. The work nobody really wants to do, and that's go talk to our neighbors. That's the way out.
I want to make a request. If there's anybody here from Montgomery County, Maryland, who would like to work more harder with me on exactly the thing that Bruce is talking about, I would really love it if you'd come and talk to me sometime during this conference. Okay, question.
Yes, hi. My name is Nick Modern. I do work to oppose drone attacks. Yes, thank you. And I am representing some folks at home in Westchester County. We live near Yonkers on the Hudson River. I wanted to ask everyone in the audience if they would not object to it. If for people who are spending the majority of their time in anti-war work, and then if the people who are spending the majority of their time on environmental issues, I'm assuming that this group might break down that way to some degree because it is a group about war and environment, and I wanted to be able to report back to my colleagues at home. So if you wouldn't mind, the people who are involved primarily with anti-war activities, would you raise your hands? Thank you. And the people who are primarily involved with environmental work? Great. Yeah, thank you very much. The reason I ask it is because yesterday there was a question brought up here by Brian Terrell, who said that he had found antipathy among environmental groups for having anything to do with war. I know that there are people here who are involved in both, but I maybe I'm a little bit egomaniacal about this, but I feel as though it's good to be involved with both, but my priority is to want to stop killing people. And I think that the issues that we're talking about in terms of environment are predicated on the willingness of our government and our people to accept killing of certain people outright, systematically, and without any kind of apology. So I wanted to just get an idea generally, and I am happy that people are working on both, but that's the reason I asked the question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I think we've got time for one more question.
Great. Okay, thank you. And a really wonderful panel, and just so much appreciate the really critical work that all of you are doing. And, you know, it just seems like conversion is so timely because, you know, the climate crisis is just writ so large right now, but so too is the military crisis and nuclear weapons. And, you know, everyone really is in the target hairs now on both counts. So it's really exciting time, I think, to help just sort of revive this. And I'm really excited to know, you know, that there's going to be a big push coming up in October around Bath Iron Works. And the comment you made, Bruce, about how, you know, we don't have much time, you know, to me, it just underscores that this is so much just just the tip of the iceberg of what we need to do, that instead of talking about a $1 trillion stimulus package, which Donald Trump is calling for, and there's talk about bipartisan push here for this big stimulus package, which is mostly going to be about, the fossil fuel and the war economy. It's just a great time for us to keep raising the bar and to just not let that go unanswered, that we should be calling for a $1 trillion investment now for conversion for a Green New Deal, and not to let them off the hook. But I also just wanted to mention that a legislator in Maine named Ralph Chapman, who's a Democrat of the legislature, just quit the Democratic Party and became a Green. So I just wanted to point out that there may be more allies. We assume that we don't have any allies, but we could actually, support those allies and ask them to support you, because this would be a great way to, begin addressing those outrageous corporate tax breaks that are hurting the people of Maine and, supporting these predatory industries. One last point, which is that we have local elections coming up now too, and I know Maine doesn't have a lot of them, but there are Green candidates running all over the country, and many of them are competitive and strong, and I just want to encourage people to check that out, because there you don't need to persuade the politician who's rolling in dough from the fossil fuel industry and the war predators, that these are people that already support this agenda, and if some of us just include a little bit of that in our activism as well, to give a little bit of support to these candidates who could be, who could break that glass ceiling and get into our city councils and our legislatures, it would make all the difference in the world. Thank you.
I assume everyone knows that this woman is Jill Stein, who I very proudly voted for in the last election. And the primary reason I voted for you was because you honored the message day after day as you went around the country. I heard you repeatedly. And you talked about this Green New Deal that was connecting all these dots. And you connected them all repeatedly. And that's the kind of thing we all need to be doing. So thank you very much.
Well, I want to say thank you again to our two fabulous panelists, and thank you for being a great audience.
You're doing amazing.